to say Kansas City looks like a better version of last year. I don't buy that at all. There are red flags all around this league. Baltimore's offensive line is a red flag. They're red flag. Don't tell me it's too early. It's too early to crown Pittsburgh that hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. Crown them. It's not too early to go, Sam Darnold looks pretty good with this coach and this team. Not too early to say that. So Minnesota, Detroit, and Green Bay in Chicago's division have all had moments this year where you've gone, yeah, they're good. Minnesota just whacked San Francisco. Green Bay won with a backup quarterback, very impressive. And, I mean, the Lions overtime went over the Rams. They just leaned on them with that run game. Through 2 games, the Chicago Bears haven't had a single impressive series. I mean, their best drive, their only touchdown drive started at midfield off a lousy Houston Texans punt and included a pass interference call. They've had only one offensive drive over 50 yards. Their longest play is 27 yards. It's the worst in the league, including Carolina. So this looks like a fourth-place team in a division with a lot of competent quarterbacks. We knew Detroit and Green Bay's offense would be good. Oh, crap. Minnesota's looks really good. So you got to win shootouts in this division. Because Green Bay's young and getting better. Detroit will get their act together. And Minnesota, that coach, that quarterback, those weapons, that left tackle, they're good. The biggest concern for Chicago is that every single red flag that we were concerned about, every single one has already surfaced through 2 weeks. O-line issues, coaching competency, accuracy issues, Keenan Allen struggling to stay healthy like he did with the Chargers. Caleb not playing great or always in structure. So all the red flags have surfaced. And I said the 2 things that I believe going into this season. I said, do the Bears have the structure to take this wildly improvisational quarterback? I mean, there's a little, he's an improv quarterback. It's a lot of off-script stuff. And that was Mahomes early. Now, Mahomes now is much more structured. But Mahomes years, first year starting, second year starting, there were a lot more improvisational stuff. The Chiefs had the structure. Shane Steichen gave Jalen Hurts the structure. Harbaugh, less quarterback reliant, giving Justin Herbert the right structure. I don't know if the Bears have it. And I said before the season, I think they're a 7 or an 8 win team. Are you going to be satisfied with that? It's a loud media and a loud fan base. So Caleb Williams needs to be coached hard. And I don't know if Chicago can do it. And I don't know. I mean, I'll just throw this out there. You look at their schedule. If they lose 3 of the next 4 games, you will hear Lincoln Riley rumors. I promise you. Now, I don't think Lincoln Riley wants it. He's got a great staff at USC. They're going to beat Michigan. They're going to be 3-0. They're going to be a top 5, 6, 7 team. He's not going to take that job. That's not a good fit for Lincoln Riley. But this is a quarterback that lives on improvisation. Brett Favre did a lot of it. I'm okay with it. Lamar Jackson does a lot of it. Mahomes early did a lot of it. Kyler Murray this weekend did a lot of it. I'm for it. But those kind of quarterbacks need strong coaching to get structure. And I'm not sure it's in the building.
Okay, so let's talk about this. I want to talk about this from a few directions. One, about what Colin's talking about with Caleb Williams and structure. And 2, about, what their schedule looks like and how many wins they can. So first, I'll talk about Caleb Williams and this whole idea of structure and him being off script and yada, yada, yada. Here's the reality, though. Yes, some of Caleb Williams' off-script plays have not worked very well for him, right? He's had a lot of, interceptions, sacks, and whatnot. But that hasn't been the fundamental problem with Caleb Williams. It's not like Caleb Williams is just going off-script all day, every single drive, and then is failing, right? And he's now hurting his team in that regard. That's not exactly what's happening. And when they ask Caleb Williams to just run the offense, which Chris Collinsworth pointed out, he's done incredibly well. He's done incredibly well in that structure. So I just don't know if we blame Caleb for that lack of success, which in a way is what Colin is saying, that he's kind of blaming the coaching. But the big problem is that they have no offensive line and no run game. I mean, it's impossible to run an offense when you have no run game. When you're just pass. It's impossible. In the NFL, it's just impossible. When you minimize, when you're down a strength, a key part of an offensive game plan, even just average defenses are gonna be able to take advantage of you. They just are. You don't even need to be a great defense. They'll be able to come after you. It's just the reality of where football is right now. It's just incredibly, if you were able to tell a team, hey, we're not going to run the ball once. We're going to drop back and pass just every single time. Defenses will be able to eat you up, no matter who you are. Whether it's Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, defenses will just know. They'll know exactly what to do. That's why there's play calling. That's why you're trying to kind of, play chess with the other team. So when a team knows that you just can't run the ball, or every time you do run the ball, it just goes nowhere, it's even worse. You're almost better off saying, hey, we're just going to throw the ball every single time to a degree, because at least maybe then you can kind of get a little bit more creative. But when the run game is actually like actively hurting you, and the O-line is then not giving any time to Caleb in that regard, and forcing him to kind of go off script, that's why I don't 100% blame Caleb. Make no mistake about it. Caleb Williams absolutely has to play better. Absolutely. It's also his second game. It was also just 2 games. I thought the Bears would look better. I said this in the beginning, that this schedule is nowhere near as easy as people thought. But I do admit that I thought that they would at least be looking better than what their record shows. So that's why I don't just look at, wins and losses. I'm trying to look at this from a holistic, full 365 degrees. There's a lot of things that I like about this team, and there's a lot of things that I don't. The offense is not cohesive right now. Caleb is hitting some easy plays and missing some easy plays. He hasn't really been able to get any of the tough plays, maybe like a 1 or 2, but not in a way that people imagined. And I don't know who to blame for that. You can blame Caleb. You can blame Shane Waldron. You can blame the O-line. I don't really know yet, honestly. I really don't. You can blame the fact that it's just his second year in the NFL. It just is what it is. Has been a common theme for me today with my videos. It just is what it is. I do agree with what Colin is saying to a degree, where he's saying, it's not too early to say some of these things. I don't think we can be as confident as Colin is making it out to be. So but I don't think we can just say, well, we can't say anything. It's only week 2. What do we know? Right? Pictures are starting to clarify a little bit, right? Things are starting to slowly get clearer, but it's like 1999 picture on the internet is like really blurry, and you're like, what is that? And you like zoom in and it's all pixelated. Like, you can kind of tell, I think that's a dog, right? I don't know what type of dog it is, but it is a dog. I don't know the breed though. Is it a lab? Is it a pit bull? Like, what is it? That's where we're at right now. We can tell that something is a dog, but we don't know what the breed is. It's just too soon to make these defining statements about anything. There are definitely yellow flags and red flags, but it's not the complete picture. It's just not to me. And I try to be as forgiving as I can early on in the season. But now let's look at this schedule, okay? The Colts is an absolute winnable game, but you don't know, because AR is, the quarterback for the Colts, is all over the place. He sometimes looks like literally the greatest quarterback you've ever seen in your entire life, or he looks like he shouldn't even be in the NFL. That is the wild inconsistency with him. And now you're talking about a great defense. The one thing that we do know is that the Chicago Bears look like they have a really, 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 really good defense. And that's been continuing since last season. So a quarterback who is all over the place, unless he just is able to just harvest the energy from the universe and really become transcendent, the Bears should be in a position to make the Colts uncomfortable offensively. What can they do defensively? We're about to find out. Can Caleb Williams look better than Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers? It's actually going to be a fascinating question mark to be able to compare the two. Did Malik Willis look better than Caleb Williams against the Colts? That is when pictures start to clarify. If he looks worse than Malik Willis, you're a little bit uncomfortable now. So you don't even have to necessarily win the game, but you definitely have to look better than Malik Willis. Have a better game plan, because you should be a better team offensively with Caleb Williams, and even if you are down a weapon or two, you should still look better than what the Packers have with the backup quarterback. So that's going to be interesting. But Matt LaFleur is absolutely a better offensive coach than Shane Waldron. I know Bears fans maybe don't want to hear that, but it's the reality. So I'm excited to see what that game looks like. That's where the picture starts to get a little bit more, clarified to me. We can start to see now is a dog male or female, but maybe we still don't know the breed. Then the Rams. The Rams are in trouble right now. They're down their weapons. They're number 1 and number 2 wide receiver, and their offensive line is bad right now, right? Like they are so decimated by injuries. This is an absolute winnable game unless in the next 2 weeks both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp come back, which I don't even think that's possible because of I think they're on IR. I'm not sure. I don't know, so don't quote me on that. But that both those guys are down. Absolute winnable game. Absolute winnable game. We saw what the Cardinals did to the Rams. They made the Rams look like a JV team. Okay? So that's an absolute winnable game. The Panthers. Everyone's beating up on the Panthers. Maybe with Andy Dalton, the team looks better. It's definitely a possibility. It really is a true possibility. Bryce Young, I'm not going to make any declarations about Bryce Young. I'm going to be completely honest. I have not watched a ton about Bryce Young. Maybe he's actually this really great quarterback and the Panthers just they're doing a bad job of supporting him. But if he actually really is just an absolute bust and disaster, not good enough, the Panthers will be a better team with Andy Dalton, who is a legitimate quarterback in the NFL. He's not a top 5 quarterback, top 10, and probably right now maybe not even a legitimate starting quarterback. But I don't know. You could probably make the argument that he's worthy of being one of the 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. So the Panthers, this will be a little bit harder of a game than it was with Bryce Young, but obviously, of course, winnable. Same thing with the Jags. I really don't really believe what they're doing there. Maybe Trevor Lawrence gets things going by week 6, but it's definitely winnable. You should not be intimidated by the Jags. The Commanders. This is also going to be a good, fascinating game. By week 8, I believe the Commanders should look a little bit better. I think that they're going to continue to get better and better and better. They have Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn. That defense should be looking a little bit better. The offense should be looking a little better. It's also going to be a unique team. You have a very hyper-mobile quarterback in Jaden Daniels. He's also trying to prove a point. He wants to win this game against the Bears, prove that he should be the number 1 pick. You always kind of have those storylines kind of working. So it's going to be, it's going to be an interesting game. Should be competitive, but if you're going to be honest about the Bears should have a better defense, and they should have a better offense. They should have better weapons, and Caleb Williams is supposed to be better than Jaden Daniels. So that's going to be an interesting game. Week 9, Cardinals. Cardinals are kind of on fire, right? Maybe they come back down to earth by week 9. Even if they don't, and they're still on fire, and, you lose this game, then it's a hard-fought loss. The Patriots should be able to beat the Patriots, and now this is where things start to get interesting again. If the Bears have been able to get some momentum, collect some of those wins, learn what works, learn what doesn't, can they start to be competitive with the Packers, with the Vikings, right? Maybe Sam Darnold comes back down to earth. I have no idea. I think the Vikings are also going to continue to look good. The Packers, Jordan Love should be healthy. The Packers team, they should be a good team. They should be a great team in the NFL, right? That's going to be a hard-fought game. This is where you're going to really find out how good are the Bears' defense at this point. The Lions. Maybe the Lions right this ship now. The Lions have not looked good. I've talked about that extensively. The Lions are not looking good right now. This now, to me, potentially becomes a winnable game unless the Lions really kind of worked out some kinks and they're kind of back to being a top team in the NFL. The 49ers, again, kind of the same thing. They're kind of having a slightly uneven start to the season, but I have to imagine, although they're dealing with some serious injuries right now, Debo, Christian McCaffrey, who knows if they're now no longer in a great position and they got these become gotta have it, gotta win games. That's definitely a possibility. They could be fighting just to make the playoffs or the division. That now becomes an all hands on deck game where you're going to get their best effort. You just don't know. And same thing with the Seahawks game. Their defense is looking quite potent. But again, too tough to tell because you just don't know what a team is going to look like. This is why the back half of the schedule gets tough because you just don't know what the teams are going to look like. We know who the Colts are looking like right now, right? We know who what the Rams are looking like right now unless they suddenly get really healthy. I have no idea what the Lions are going to look like. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown fully healthy? Is he banged up? Is Jared Goff back in form? Are the 49ers full strength? Is Christian McCaffrey down? Is Debo down? Is Ayuk finally looking like himself? Right? We have no idea. So when you're talking about that far in the future, it becomes very hard to predict. And then again, even the final Packers game, maybe the Packers locked up their spot in the playoffs. And Jordan Love's not playing now, right? So you just don't know. There are wins to be had, but it is tough. Some of those wins that you're really supposed to get, like let's just go through it where if we just pick the super easy wins and just gave an unfavorable losses to the harder games, right? Let's say they're 1-1. So let's say they beat the Colts, that's 2. Let's say they beat the Rams, that's 3. Let's say they beat the Panthers, that's 4. Let's say they beat the Jags, that's 5. Let's say they beat the Commanders, that's 6. So that's now 6 wins. Let's say they lose to the Cardinals, and then they beat the Patriots, that's 7. And then this is where I think it's really hard to predict. Let's just say they, if they could just go 1-1 with those teams, that's 7. That would be 8, 9, 10. Right? I mean, if you just can win 3 games of the next, what is that? 8 games, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, right? Like, you would just have to win another 3 games out of the whole back half of the schedule, and you're potentially in the playoffs, right? Like, it is possible. You don't even, in that back half of the schedule, that should be really tough. If you could just eke out a few wins, you could literally be fighting for a playoff spot, right? And again, those games that I said, I'm not saying that those were guaranteed wins. When I was saying the Panthers, the Rams, the Jags, the Commanders, I'm just saying that those games are most likely the best chance at wins. And so the margin of error does shrink. It does, of course, get smaller. And for the most part, teams always lose games that they're supposed to win, and they win games that they're not. So it's not hard to imagine that they maybe go out and beat the 49ers, right? Caleb Williams plays absolutely unbelievable, and we finally have that moment that people have been going crazy for, right? Or maybe they go 2-0 against the Packers, or 2-0 against the Vikings. You just, it's impossible to predict. So that's why sometimes I like to just go through, like, what is, like, the most elementary way where they should win these games, and give the unfavorable, these tough games. Let's just say they lose. What does that schedule look like? And then that, I feel like that's a good foundational, kind of like a good groundwork to kind of work from there, to be like, okay, maybe they'll end up losing to the Rams, but maybe they end up beating the Packers and then the Vikings, right? Like, it's just, again, it's impossible to predict. But so I still think it's possible, is really my whole argument here. But they just got to get better. They got to be better. They can't just get by on a tough defense. They got to get more production out of their offense. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Colts game will tell us a lot about what that offense is going, mainly because of what the Packers did against the Colts with Malik Willis. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think the Chicago Bears are in serious trouble? Do you think they can still right the ship, or do you think it's too late to do so? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.